The war room was massive. It could hold 1,000 beings, but today, only 50 sat around the glowing table. Each chair held a different alien species. Some had 4 arms, others had skin that changed colors. A few breathed different air through special masks. But they all looked tired, very tired. Admiral Vexithara stood at the front of the room. Her blue skin was darker than usual, which meant she was worried. In her 6 hands, she held data tablets showing numbers that made everyone sick to see. "The war has been going for 300 years, she said. Her voice was heavy. "Half the galaxy is burning. Billions are dead. Entire star systems are gone." The beings around the table shifted in their seats. Everyone knew the numbers. The hegemony of evolved minds and the confederacy of ancient stars had been fighting for so long that young soldiers didn't even remember why the war started. Counselor Rathmoon stood up. He was tall and thin, with gray skin that looked like old metal. "We need a new plan," he said. "Something different. We cannot win this war the old way." "What do you suggest?" asked Admiral Vexithara. "The Forgotten Archives," Rathmoon said. The room went quiet. Everyone knew about the archives. They were old databanks that held information about every species that ever lived in the galaxy. Most of the data was useless now. Many species were dead. Others had changed so much they were not the same anymore. "You want to look for help from dead civilizations?" asked a counselor with tentacles for arms. "Not dead ones," Rathmoon said. "Lost ones, forgotten ones. Maybe there is a species we missed. Maybe there is technology we forgot about. We have to try something." Admiral Vexithara thought for a moment. "Very well. Send a team to the archives." 3 days later, junior archivist Kylda was working deep in the archive station. She was young for her species, only 200 years old. Her job was to look through old files that nobody else wanted to read. The archive station was dark and cold. Most of the lights had been turned off to save power for the war. Kylda worked alone with just a small desk light and her computer screen. She had been reading files for 12 hours straight. Most were boring. Some were about species that died from diseases. Others were about civilizations that destroyed themselves in wars. Nothing helpful. Then she found something strange. The file had symbols she had never seen before. Her computer could not read them. The species name was listed as Sol 3 natives. She looked up the star charts for Sol 3, but found nothing. The SEI area of space was marked as empty. "That's odd," she said to herself. The file was old, very old. The last entry was made 847 standard cycles ago. She read the entry and felt cold. Quarantine status, indefinite. Reason, unpredictable evolutionary acceleration. Danger level, unknown. Kylda sat back in her chair. A quarantine that old meant this species was dangerous. But dangerous how? She kept reading. The next file was a report from a science team. It was written by Dr. Zelthok, a famous xenobiologist who died centuries ago. His words made Kylda's blood run cold. Day 47 of observation. The Sol 3 natives continue to exhibit impossible adaptation rates. In just 50 cycles of monitoring, we have observed technological advancement that should take most species 500 cycles to achieve. Kylda found more reports. Each one was more frightening than the last. Day 152. The natives have weaponized nuclear energy only cycles after discovering it. This level of applied learning is beyond our current understanding of species development. Day 203. We observed the natives survive a climate catastrophe that destroyed 60% of their large animal life. Instead of dying, they adapted their agriculture and spread to new continents. Day 267. The natives have begun preliminary space exploration using chemical rockets. Their rate of technological growth continues to exceed all known patterns. But it was the final report that made Kylda drop her data tablet. Final observation log. Dr. Zelthak recording. We are ending this study and recommend immediate quarantine protocols. The sole 3 natives exhibit evolutionary traits that violate every known law of species development. They do not simply adapt to challenges, they weaponize them. Most species faced with extinction events either die or change slowly over many generations. These beings change within single lifetimes. They turn disasters into advantages. They make weaknesses into strengths. We observed them survive an ice age with primitive technology, then use the experience to develop better tools. They call themselves human. We have decided this species must remain isolated. Their evolutionary pattern is not just unusual. It is dangerous to the stability of galactic civilization. They represent a form of development that could destabilize the carefully maintained balance between species. We pray the galaxy never remembers that name. Kylda stared at the screen for a long time. Then she started looking for more files. She found scattered reports from different research teams. All said the same thing. Humans were too dangerous to contact. One report talked about human warfare. They do not fight like other species. Most civilizations fight to defend territory or resources. Humans fight to win completely. They study their enemies and copy their tactics. They turn every defeat into a lesson. They never stop improving their methods. Another report was about human society. They organize themselves in ways that make no sense. They cooperate with strangers. They help people who cannot help them back. They sacrifice themselves for ideas, not just for family groups. This behavior should make them weak, but somehow it makes them stronger. A third report was from a medical team. Human biology is impossible. They can survive in environments that kill most species. They recover from injuries that should be permanent. They live in deserts, frozen lands, and high mountains. They are not the strongest or fastest species, but they might be the most stubborn. Kylda realized she was shaking. She had found something that could change the war. But should she report it? The ancient scientists had hidden these humans for good reasons. She looked at the date again. 847 cycles ago. That was a long time. Maybe the humans were dead now. Maybe they never developed space travel. Maybe the quarantine had worked. But what if it hadn't? She made her decision. Kylda copied all the files to a secure data crystal and walked to the communications center. She sent an encrypted message to the Galactic Council. Priority message for Admiral Vexithara. I have found something in the archives. Species designation, human. Recommend immediate investigation. Files attached. She sent the message and sat back. Whatever happened next, the galaxy was about to remember a name it had tried very hard to forget. In empty space, far from the archive station, a small yellow star continued to shine. Around it, a blue and green planet turned slowly. On that planet, beings called humans continued to grow, to learn, to change, and to reach for the stars. They had no idea that the galaxy was about to remember they existed. The war was about to get much more complicated. Captain Jinha stood on the bridge of the Infinite Curiosity. Through the main window, he could see Earth getting smaller behind them. This was humanity's first trip beyond their solar system, and he was in charge. "Captain," said Ha-Rin from her station. She was the communication officer, and her job was to listen for signals from space. "I'm getting something strange." Jinha walked over to her console. Numbers and symbols moved across her screen. "What is it?" "Mathematical sequences," Ha-Rin said. "Someone is trying to talk to us." Jinha felt his heart beat faster. For months, Earth scientists had wondered if they would find other life in space. Now it seemed like other life had found them first. "Can you respond?" he asked. "Already working on it," Ha-Rin said. Her fingers moved quickly over her controls. "I'm sending back the next numbers in their sequence. If they're intelligent, they'll understand." They waited. The bridge was quiet, except for the soft hum of the ship's engines. Then Harin's screen lit up. "They're responding," she said. "The signal is getting stronger. Whatever is out there, it's coming closer." "Red alert," Jinha said. The bridge lights changed to red. "All hands to battle stations." "Wait," said Harin. "They're sending more math. But now they're sending pictures too. Simple ones, a circle, a triangle, a star." Jake Morrison, the tactical officer, looked up from his weapons console. "Could be a trick, or it could be a greeting," Jinha said. He made a decision that would change human history. "Harin, send pictures back. Show them we understand." For the next hour, they exchanged simple messages. The alien ship came closer, but slowly. It was beautiful. The hull looked like it was made of crystal and light. It was much bigger than the human ship and clearly more advanced. Finally, a face appeared on their main screen. Jinha stared. The being had 4 arms and pale blue skin that changed color as they watched. Its eyes were large and kind. When it spoke, the words came through their computer as English. "Greetings, unknown species," the being said. "I am First Scholar Xanthea of the Hegemony Research Division. I am here to learn about your civilization and decide how we should interact with you." Jinha stepped forward. "This is Captain Jinha of the Earth vessel Infinite Curiosity. We come in peace and welcome contact with your people." Xanthea's skin shifted to a lighter blue. "Earth? Is that the name of your world?" "Yes. We call ourselves humans." The color change was immediate. Xanthea's skin went from blue to purple to almost white. She looked shocked. "Did I say something wrong?" Jinha asked. No, Xanthea said quickly. "It's just your species name sounds familiar, but that's impossible. Please, tell me about your people." For the next several hours, Xanthea asked questions. She wanted to know about human technology, their government, their history. Jinha answered honestly. But he noticed that with each answer, the alien seemed more disturbed. "You say your species survived an ice age?" Xanthea asked. "Several ice ages," Jinha said. "We had to adapt or die." "With primitive technology? Stone tools, fire, animal skins? We weren't very advanced back then." Xanthea's skin was cycling through colors rapidly now. "And you survived?" "More than survived," Harin added from her station. "We spread across the entire planet during the ice ages. The harsh conditions made us stronger." "That should be impossible," Xanthea whispered. Rex, the ship's engineer, looked up from his console. "Most species don't survive major climate changes. Most species either die out completely or retreat to small, safe areas and wait for conditions to improve," Xanthea explained. "They don't expand during catastrophes." Jinha exchanged glances with his crew. "We've always been good at making the best of bad situations." "Tell me about your wars," Xanthea said suddenly. The question surprised Jinha. "Which ones?" "You've had multiple wars? Hundreds of them. Maybe thousands, if you count all the small ones." Xanthea's skin went completely white. "How many of your people died in these wars?" Jake Morrison checked his datapad. "Hard to say exactly. Probably around 1 billion people total across all conflicts." "1 billion?" Xanthea's voice was barely a whisper. "That's just the wars," Harin added. "Diseases killed a lot more. The Black Death alone killed about 75 million people in Europe." "But you survived," Xanthea said. "We always survive," Jinha said simply. "Sometimes we lose a lot of people, but the species goes on. Usually we come back stronger than before." "How is that possible?" Rex shrugged. "We learn from our mistakes. Every disaster teaches us something. Every war shows us new technologies or strategies. Every disease helps us understand medicine better." Xanthea was quiet for a long time. Her skin kept changing colors and patterns none of the humans understood. "Tell me," she finally said, "what is the worst thing that ever happened to your species?" The humans looked at each other. "That's a tough question," Jinha said. "We've had a lot of bad times." "The nuclear bombs were pretty bad," Jake said. "We actually used atomic weapons against each other." "You weaponized nuclear energy?" Xanthia asked. "Yeah, but then we learned to use it for power too," Rex explained. "Nuclear reactors give us clean energy now." "You turned a weapon into a tool?" "We turn everything into tools," Harin said. "It's what we do." Xanthia stared at them for a moment. "What about diseases? Surely those weakened your species." "Actually, they made our immune system stronger," Jinha said. "And they taught us about medicine. Some of our greatest medical advances came from fighting epidemics. And famines led to better agriculture," Rex said. "We learned to grow more food in less space. Natural disasters? We developed better engineering and warning systems," Jake added. Xanthia's skin was now cycling through colors so fast it was hard to follow. "Let me understand this correctly. Every major catastrophe in your history has made your species stronger?" "Pretty much," Jinha said. "We don't just survive problems. We solve them." "But that's impossible," Xanthia said again. "Species don't work that way. Catastrophes are supposed to weaken civilizations, not strengthen them." Harin leaned forward. "How do other species handle disasters?" They try to avoid them. They build defenses. They retreat to safe places and wait for the danger to pass." "That sounds boring," Rex said. "Boring?" Xanthia looked confused. "Yeah. Where's the challenge in that? How do you grow if you never face problems?" Xanthia didn't answer. She seemed to be thinking very hard. Finally, she spoke again. "I need to consult with my superiors. This conversation has been educational." "Will we meet again?" Jinha asked. "I believe that is very likely," Xanthia said. Her image flickered and disappeared. The bridge was quiet for a moment. Then Jake spoke up. "Did anyone else think she seemed scared?" "Not scared," Harin said, studying the recordings of the conversation. "Worried, like she just discovered something she didn't want to know." Jinha stared out at the alien ship as it moved away. "I have a feeling this is just the beginning." He was right. Across the galaxy, Xanthia was already sending reports to the Hegemony High Command. Her message was simple but alarming. Have made contact with species designation human from Sol 3. Request immediate full analysis. Species exhibits anomalous survival characteristics that do not match any known evolutionary patterns. Recommend extreme caution in all future interactions. What she didn't know was that the humans had been learning too. Rex had quietly scanned their ship during the entire conversation. Jake had analyzed their weapons systems. Harin had studied their communication methods. Humanity had just announced itself to the galaxy, and as always, they were already figuring out how to turn first contact into an advantage. Dr. Vasilina walked into the secure briefing room with 4 data tablets in her hands. As the Hegemony's top expert on species warfare, she had seen many dangerous civilizations, but nothing had prepared her for what she had learned about humans. Supreme. Commander Talreath sat at the head of the table. His green skin was darker than usual, which meant he was stressed. Around the table sat the most important military leaders in the Hegemony. "Doctor," Talreath said, "tell us what you found." Dr. Vasilina activated the holographic display. Images of Earth appeared in the air above the table. 6 months of analysis. Commander, the results are disturbing. She touched her tablet and the display changed to show human historical data. In 10,000 years, humans went from primitive hunters to space travelers. Most species take 50 times longer. "That's unusual but not impossible," said General Crecton. "That's not the dangerous part," Dr. Vasilina continued. The dangerous part is how they evolved. Every catastrophe that should have destroyed them made them stronger instead. The display showed images of human cities burning, then being rebuilt bigger than before. It showed diseases spreading, followed by medical advances. It showed wars ending with new technologies. "Look at this pattern," the doctor said. "Plague kills half their population. Result, better medicine and stronger immune systems. Ice Age freezes their world. Result, they spread to new continents and develop better tools. Nuclear war nearly destroys them. Result, they learn to use atomic energy for power." The room was quiet. Everyone stared at the images. They don't just survive. Disasters, Dr. Vasilina explained. They weaponize them. They turn every weakness into strength. Every defeat becomes a lesson. Every problem becomes an opportunity. Supreme Commander Talreath leaned forward. "What are you saying, Doctor?" "I'm saying they don't evolve like normal species. They evolve like a weapon. And now they're in our galaxy." Meanwhile, on Earth, the Global Defense Council was meeting in underground bunkers. President Sarah Chen looked tired as she studied the reports from Jinha's first contact mission. "Their technology is centuries ahead of ours in most areas," she said to the gathered world leaders. "Not all areas," said Admiral Rex Thompson. He was studying the tactical analysis of the alien ship. "Their designs are beautiful but fragile. They think like a species that never faced real danger." Ha-Rin, now promoted to Earth's chief alien affairs officer, was studying the cultural data. "I found something interesting," she said. "According to their records, there are over 10,000 intelligent species in the galaxy." "That's a lot," said President Chen. "Yes, but look at this." Ha-Rin brought up population charts. These civilizations haven't changed in thousands of years. Same technology, same population, same territory, they're completely stable. Jinha, now Admiral of Earth's small space fleet, understood first. "They've stopped evolving." "Exactly," Ha-Rin said. "They've eliminated war, disease, resource problems. They've created perfect, stable societies. They've eliminated natural selection," Rex realized. "They're advanced, but they're soft. The implications hit everyone at the same time. Humanity had spent millions of years as underdogs, survivors, fighters. They had just made contact with a galaxy full of species that had forgotten how to struggle." "What does this mean for us?" asked President Chen. Admiral Jin Ha stood up. "It means we have an advantage they don't expect. They think in terms of technology and resources. We think in terms of adaptation and survival." "But they still have better weapons," pointed out General Martinez. "Weapons aren't everything," Jake Morrison said. He was now Earth's strategic warfare coordinator. "Better weapons don't help if you don't know how to use them properly. And they've been at peace for so long, I bet they've forgotten how to really fight." Ha-Rin pulled up more data. "Actually, that's not true. They are fighting. The galaxy has been at war for 300 years. 300 years? Jinha looked surprised. "That's a very long war." "Too long," Ha-Rin said quietly. "I've been studying their battle reports. Both sides have enough firepower to destroy each other completely. But they don't. They fight carefully. They avoid total victories." The room went quiet as everyone processed this information. "Why would they avoid winning?" asked President Chen. Ha-Rin's voice was barely a whisper. "Because they're afraid of what happens after victory. They're maintaining the war on purpose." Jake Morrison leaned forward. "You mean they want the war to continue?" "I think so," Ha-Rin said. "Both sides are terrified of what might happen if one civilization becomes too dominant, so they created an eternal stalemate. The truth hit Admiral Jin Ha like a physical blow. The entire war is fake." "Not fake," Ha-Rin corrected. "Real people are dying, but controlled. They're using war as a tool to prevent any single species from growing too powerful." Rex Thompson whistled softly. "They've turned war into a management system." And now we're here, Jinha said. A species that doesn't believe in controlled anything. President Chen stood up. What do we do with this information? We do what humans always do, Jake Morrison said. We find a way to turn this situation to our advantage. How? Jinha smiled grimly. We offer to help end their war. 6 months later, human advisors were scattered across the galaxy. It started small. Quan, an agricultural expert, was sent to help with food shortages on a war-torn planet. The alien, farmers had spent decades using complex computer models to optimize their crops. Quan took one look at their perfect mathematical growing systems and said, "Have you tried crop rotation?" The aliens didn't understand at first. The concept was so simple, so primitive, that their computers couldn't process it. But when they tried it, food production increased by over 300% in one season. News spread quickly. The human method became famous across hegemony space. Not because it was advanced, but because it worked in ways their sophisticated models never predicted. Rex was working with Confederate ship designers on the other side of the galaxy. The alien engineers were confused when he suggested building ships that could be repaired instead of replaced. But our calculations show maximum efficiency requires. One engineer started. Your calculations don't account for getting shot. Rex interrupted. You want efficiency? Build a ship that can fight with half its systems destroyed and still make it home. Within months, human-modified ships were dominating battles across the galaxy, not through better weapons, but through the revolutionary idea that ships should be able to survive damage. But it was Harin who made the discovery that would change everything. Now serving as humanity's ambassador to the Galactic Council, she had been studying the war's history when she found the final piece of the puzzle. The war isn't random, she reported to Earth in an encrypted message. It's carefully managed. Both sides are working together to maintain exactly the right level of conflict. Admiral Jinha frowned at her image on the screen. Why? Because they're terrified of evolution, Harin said. They've seen what happens when civilizations grow too quickly, so they created a system to prevent rapid change. The revelation was stunning. The entire galaxy had been locked in artificial stagnation for centuries. Jake Morrison put the final pieces together. They didn't quarantine us because we were a military threat. They quarantined us because we represent something they've been trying to prevent for 1,000 years. What's that? Proof that evolution doesn't stop. That civilizations can keep growing, keep changing, keep becoming more than they were. As human influence spread across the galaxy through simple solutions and practical thinking, both sides of the galactic war began to panic. Secret meetings were held. Emergency protocols were activated. For the first time in 3 centuries, the eternal enemies agreed on something. Humanity had to be stopped. The galaxy was about to learn what happened. When you tried to contain a species that had never learned the meaning of the word impossible, 2 years after first contact, the galaxy was shaking. Not from explosions or battles, but from something much more frightening. Change. Quan stood in a field on Kelthera Prime, watching the crystal beings harvest crops. The tall blue aliens moved slowly through rows of grain that stretched to the horizon. Their leader, Administrator Velthar, walked beside him with obvious excitement. Impossible, Velthar kept saying. The numbers should not work this way. Quan smiled and picked up a handful of soil. Sometimes the best solutions are the simple ones. For decades, the Keltherans had used massive computers to plan their farming. Every seed was placed by mathematical formula. Every drop of water was calculated. Every nutrient was measured perfectly. But their crops were failing because of the war. Quan had taken one look at their perfect system and asked a question that shocked them. Why do you plant the same crop in the same field every year? The concept of crop rotation was so basic, so primitive, that the Keltherans couldn't understand it at first. Their computers said it was inefficient. Their models showed it was wasteful. But when they tried it, everything changed. The soil became richer. The plants grew stronger. Food production increased by 340% in just one growing season. "How did your species discover this method?" Velthar asked. "We've been doing it for 12,000 years, Quan said. "We learned it when we were still using stone tools." Velthar's crystal skin changed from blue to purple, which meant he was confused. "Your Stone Age ancestors were better farmers than our computer systems?" "In some ways, yes. They had to be. If their crops failed, they died. So they learned what worked." News of the human method spread through hegemony space like wildfire. Not because it was advanced, but because it solved problems that sophisticated technology couldn't fix. On the other side of the galaxy, Rex was having similar success with the Confederate Navy. He stood in the engineering bay of their newest battleship, surrounded by confused alien designers. "You want us to make the ship weaker?" asked Chief Engineer Zal Inth. Her 4 arms moved in patterns that showed her distress. "Not weaker," Rex explained patiently. "More repairable. Look at this design." He showed them blueprints on his tablet. "Your ships are perfect when they're undamaged, but one hit to a critical system and the whole ship dies." "That is efficient design," Zalianth protested. Maximum performance in battle requires staying alive," Rex interrupted. He pulled up combat footage on the wall screen. "Watch this. Your ship takes one hit to the power core and loses everything. All weapons, all shields, all engines." The aliens watched their beautiful crystalline warship die in seconds after a single enemy hit. "Now watch this," Rex said. He showed footage of an old human warship from Earth's history. The primitive metal ship was covered in holes, smoking, and missing half its weapons. But it kept fighting. "That ship should be dead," Zalinth said. "But it's not, because we built it to survive damage, not avoid damage." Rex's modifications spread through the Confederate fleet within months. Ships that could fight with half their systems destroyed. Hulls that could be patched with simple materials. Engines that kept running even when damaged. The results were dramatic. Human-modified ships were winning battles across the galaxy, not through superior weapons, but through the revolutionary idea of battlefield survival. But the most important, changes were happening in places no one expected. Harin sat in the Galactic Council chambers, listening to representatives from 1,000 species argue about trade routes. The meeting had been going for 6 hours with no progress. Finally, she stood up. "Excuse me?" she said politely. The chamber went quiet. Harin was still new to galactic politics, and many species didn't take humans seriously yet. "You've been arguing about shipping lanes for 6 hours," she said. "But you're all missing something obvious?" Ambassador Thekmol of the Rigelian Consortium raised his tentacles in annoyance. "What could a primitive species possibly understand about interstellar commerce?" Harin smiled. "You're fighting over 3 shipping routes through contested space. But according to your own star charts, there are 17 other routes that avoid the war zones completely." The chamber erupted in noise as representatives checked their data tablets. Thekmol's tentacles turned pale. "These routes are longer, less efficient, but safer," Harin pointed out. "And if you use all 17 routes instead of fighting over 3, you can move 5 times as much cargo." Within a week, galactic trade had increased by 400%. The solution was so simple that no one had thought of it. They had been so focused on optimizing the best routes that they forgot about using the available routes. Similar changes were happening everywhere humans went. Jake Morrison was teaching military tactics to Confederate officers. His lessons were simple. Don't just plan for victory, plan for survival. Don't just attack weaknesses, create weaknesses. Don't just follow the plan, adapt when the plan fails. The galactic military academies had taught the same strategies for thousands of years. Jake's ideas were primitive by their standards, but they worked. Human-trained officers began winning battles by doing things that made no strategic sense. They retreated when they were winning to avoid traps. They attacked when they were losing to create opportunities. They ignored their own battle plans to take advantage of enemy mistakes. Most shocking of all, they learned from their defeats. In galactic military tradition, losing commanders were removed from service. Jake taught them that losing was just another form of education. Every defeat teaches you something your victories can't, he explained to a group of Confederate generals. The question isn't whether you'll lose battles. The question is what you'll learn when you do. But it was the cultural changes that worried galactic leaders the most. Everywhere humans went, other species started asking dangerous questions. Why? Had things always been done the same way? Why were they satisfied with stable populations when they could grow? Why were they avoiding challenges when challenges led to improvement? Young aliens began questioning their elders. Scientists started experimenting with forbidden research. Artists created new forms of expression. Engineers designed impossible devices that somehow worked anyway. The galaxy was remembering something it had forgotten: the excitement of discovery, ND. The Hegemony flagship, Supreme Commander Tal Reith, met with his Confederate counterpart, Marshal Kexvara. For the first time in 3 centuries, the leaders of both sides sat in the same room. The situation is getting out of control, Tal Reith said. Human influence is spreading faster than we can contain it. Marshal Kexvara nodded. Her scales had turned dark red, which meant she was angry. My own officers are questioning orders. They want to adapt their strategies. They talk about learning from mistakes and growing through challenges. The humans aren't conquering us with weapons, Tal Reith realized. They're conquering us with ideas. Dangerous ideas, Kexvara agreed. Ideas that could destroy everything we've built. The question is, what do we do about it? Both leaders looked at the star charts on the table between them. Sol System glowed like a small yellow dot in the center of their galaxy. Such a tiny thing to cause so much trouble. We end this, Tal Reith said finally, before they spread any further, before they change anything else. Agreed. For the first time in 3 centuries, the Hegemony and Confederacy will fight together. Against humanity? Against change itself. As the 2 leaders planned their alliance, they had no idea that Jin Ha was already preparing Earth's defenses. Harin had warned him that something was coming. Rex had been studying alien ship designs for weaknesses. Jake Morrison had been developing battle plans for impossible odds. Quan was still on Kelthera Prime, teaching farmers new techniques, but he was also learning about alien psychology, alien weaknesses, alien fears, because that's what humans did. They learned. They adapted. They prepared. The galaxy was about to discover what happened when an unstoppable force met an immovable object, and humanity had never learned how to be immovable. The storm was coming, but humans had survived storms. Before, 10,000 ships surrounded Earth. It was the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history. Ships from the Hegemony and Confederacy floated side by side, their weapons pointed at the small blue planet that had caused so much trouble. Admiral Jinha stood on the bridge of the Earth's Fury, humanity's largest warship. Through the window, he could see enemy vessels stretching across space like a metal ocean. His ship was dwarfed by alien battleships that could destroy entire moons. Incoming transmission, Harin announced from her station. Its Supreme Commander, Tal Reith. The main screen flickered to life. Tal Reith's green face filled the display, his expression cold and determined. Humans of Earth, he said, you will stop all contact with galactic civilization immediately. You will return to your system and stay there forever. Any human found outside Sol System will be considered an act of war. Jinha stepped forward. Around the bridge, his crew watched quietly. Rex stood at the engineering station. Jake Morrison monitored tactical systems. Everyone waited to see how their captain would respond to impossible odds. Jinha's answer was simple and clear. No. The word echoed across every communication channel in the galaxy. On 1,000 worlds, aliens stopped what they were doing to listen. It was such a small word, but it carried the weight of human defiance. You misunderstand your situation, Talreath continued. We offer you life, contained within your solar system. The alternative is extinction. Jinha's response came not through words, but through actions. Across the galaxy, every human advisor, engineer, teacher, and specialist did something no species had ever done before. They refused to leave. On Kelthera Prime, Quan sat in his field office, surrounded by Crystal, soldiers who had come to arrest him. You can take me, he told Administrator Velthar, but who's going to teach your farmers the new planting methods? Your people will starve without proper crop rotation. The Crystal soldiers hesitated. They had families. Those families needed food. Harin faced the same situation in the Galactic Council chambers. Security forces surrounded her desk, but she simply continued working. You can remove me, she said calmly. But then who will solve your trade route problems? Your economy will collapse without efficient shipping. Across the galaxy, the same, seen repeated thousands of times. Humans didn't fight their captors. They didn't run away. They didn't negotiate. They just kept doing their jobs, helping people, solving problems. You can't force us to stop being human, Harin broadcast to the galaxy. And being human means we don't abandon people who need help. Back at Earth, Supreme Commander Talreath watched these broadcasts with growing frustration. The humans weren't acting like any species he had ever encountered. They should be afraid. They should be begging for mercy. Instead, they were stubborn. Begin the bombardment, he ordered. The combined fleet opened fire on Earth. Thousands of energy beams and missiles streaked toward the planet. It should have been the end of humanity. But the first salvo never reached Earth. 1/3 of the alien fleet suddenly turned their weapons on their own ships. Explosions bloomed across space as former allies attacked each other. What's happening? Talreath shouted. His communication officer looked terrified. Sir, multiple ships are reporting mutinies. Their crews are refusing orders. On the bridge of the hegemony cruiser Infinite Majesty, Commander Zirak stood over his captain's unconscious body. Around him, his bridge crew waited for orders. These aliens had worked alongside human advisors for months. They had learned human ways of thinking. You taught us that loyalty flows upward to our superiors, Zirak broadcast to the fleet. But humans taught us that honor flows downward to those who need protection. The mutiny spread like wildfire through the combined fleet. Alien crews who had been taught to follow orders without question suddenly found themselves questioning everything. Why were they attacking people who had only tried to help? Why were they destroying the species that had made their lives better? But Earth's real surprise was yet to come. As the remaining loyal ships pressed their attack, Earth revealed its defenses. Not advanced alien technology, but pure human ingenuity. Asteroid mining stations became kinetic bombardment platforms, hurling rocks at impossible speeds. Commercial satellites transformed into missile swarms. Communication relays became sensor networks that could track every enemy movement. The entire solar system was a weapon, not because humans had better technology, but because they had turned everything into a tool for survival. Jake Morrison coordinated the defense from his command center deep underground. Remember, he told his officers, we don't need to win. We just need to survive long enough for them to realize they can't win. The battle lasted 18 hours. When it was over, the mighty galactic fleet had been shattered, not by superior firepower, but by superior will. The humans fought with the desperate creativity of a species that had never accepted defeat. Their alien allies fought with the inspired fury of beings who had remembered what it meant to believe in something greater than survival. Supreme Commander Talreath found himself a prisoner on his own flagship, now controlled by his former tactical officer. Through the view screen, he could see Earth, scarred but unbroken, surrounded by the wreckage of the most powerful fleet ever assembled. How? Was all he could manage to ask. The answer came from Jin Ha, his face appearing on screens, across the galaxy simultaneously. You spent 3 centuries trying to prevent evolution. We spent 3 centuries proving that evolution can't be stopped. You created a galaxy of survivors, Harin added from the Galactic Council chambers, where she now sat as the new speaker. We remained a species of conquerors. The difference, Rex explained from his engineering station, is that survivors accept limitations. Conquerors create possibilities. In the days that followed, human ships moved through the galaxy, not as invaders, but as helpers. They repaired damaged vessels, rescued survivors, and began the work of healing the scars left by 3 centuries of artificial war. The galaxy watched in amazement as humans did something no conquering species had ever done. They helped their former enemies recover. Quan returned to Kelthera Prime and resumed teaching farming techniques. Rex worked with both Hegemony and Confederate engineers to rebuild their fleets. But this time, the ships were designed for exploration, not war. Jake Morrison established new military academies that taught cooperation instead of conflict. Most importantly, Harin worked with the Galactic Council to dismantle the systems that had kept civilizations locked in stagnation for millennia. The Eternal War was officially ended. The barriers preventing species development were removed. For the first time in 1,000 years, the galaxy began to grow again. Young aliens left their homeworlds to explore the universe. Scientists began researching forbidden technologies. Artists created new forms of beauty. Engineers designed impossible machines that somehow worked. The quarantine files were deleted. The walls around Sol System came down. And across 10,000 worlds, species that had forgotten how to dream began to remember what it meant to reach for the stars. On Earth, Jinha stood in his office, looking out at the night sky. The stars seemed brighter somehow. Ships from 100 different species moved between them, carrying trade goods, scientific data, cultural exchanges, and most importantly, ideas. Harin's voice came through his communicator. Admiral, we're getting reports from the Outer Rim. 3 new species have been discovered in the past week. All of them show signs of rapid technological development. Jinha smiled. The galaxy is remembering how to evolve. And it's all because we showed them it was possible. No, Jinha corrected. We showed them it was inevitable. Growth, change, reaching for something better. That's not just human nature. That's life itself. The galaxy shuddered, but not in fear anymore. It shuddered with the excitement of infinite possibility. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy through force. They had conquered it through example. They had shown a universe of static civilizations what it looked like to never stop growing, never stop learning, never stop becoming more than what you were. The age of stagnation was over. The age of evolution had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same.